Dobrý den, já jsem strašně rád, že tolik z vás tady zůstalo. Teď vás poprosím, abyste se teda už usadili. A mám velkou čest tady na pódiu představit Olivii Marien, která přijela s námi z Paříže. Je to regionální produktový expert na Google Shopping a Product Listing Ads. A tohle je dívka, která nám zařídila, aby jsme právě tento produkt mohli mít i v České republice. Takže já jsem jí strašně vděčný. So Olivia, welcome on stage.
Thank you. Hello everyone. As Jan was saying, I'm working in Paris 100% on Google Shopping and Product Listing Ad, which is the ad format we use for Google Shopping. So I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about this with you. All right, so here is the agenda today. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of what we launched recently in Czech Republic and where we stand, and then really focus quite quickly on how to optimize product listing ads campaign, how to make the most of them. So one side of it will be to optimize your data. The other one will be how to best structure your campaign, how to use product targets in order to manage your bids on your product listing ads campaign, optimize your campaign structure, what's the best bid strategy, and how to track your results. So let's start with the overview. So the Google Shopping property already existed in Czech Republic with free listings, but the PLA ad format that serves now on google.cz as well as on the shopping property didn't exist yet. So this is brand new. So the PLA format was launched in beta in February in Czech Republic. So we started with very low traffic during the early stages of the beta, and then gradually we ramped up the traffic and we launched 200% traffic on desktop on April 18. So since April 18, you can do product listing ad campaigns in Czech Republic. They will serve on the google.cz page as well as on the Google Shopping property. So when you do a PLA campaign, it serves on both sides, and the overall experience, we call it Google Shopping. So currently, in Czech Republic, you can have your PLA campaigns only on desktop computers, but very soon, in the coming months, you'll also have your PLA campaign showing on mobile and tablet. So you can see here how it looks like. So I typed iPhone 5 on Google, and you can see on the right-hand side that there's this, what we call commercial unit for PLA, with 8 results for iPhone 5. And those results are PLA. You can see how it's quite an engaging format for a Google search results page, because you have the image of your product, you have the name of it, the price, the website. So it gives you already a lot of information to decide if you're interested to click in order to purchase a product. That explains why we have really good results in terms of click-through rate and conversion rate, both because of the format that's super engaging, and also because your PLA will usually serve on quite specific product queries and very much less so on generic queries. So the people who are looking to buy a specific product and are quite already advanced in their purchase funnel will be more likely to see PLA than if they type something very, very generic, like just, for example, an apparel brand, for example. So as I said, when you're doing PLA, you have this, ad format that shows on Google Search, but it also shows on Google Shopping. So either you can start with as a user, you can do your search on Google Search. If one of the 8 results satisfies your search, you will click on it, go directly to your landing page where they can buy the product. If they want to have more information, they're still in the more early stages of their search, they want to compare more products, they can click either on the header of the PLA that says results from Google Shopping, or go directly to google.cz/shopping, and that's how the page will look like. So you can see that here you have many more options to filter based on, for example, price, or compare different merchants together, so that you can have a lot more information. So you should know that next Tuesday, so on June 11, we will complete our migration from a free to a paid model. So that means that in the past years, you used to receive some free traffic from the Google Shopping property before PLA were launched, and going forward, all the traffic from PLA, be it from the Google search page or Google Shopping property, all of this will be coming from your PLA campaign, so paid traffic. Okay, so that's to give you the overview. And the way PLA works is that it works without any keywords. So you don't need to put any keywords in your campaign. We will look at your product feed, your data feed, to automatically match the products you sell with the query from the user. And that's how a feed looks like. So that's just an example. You can imagine a product feed to be kind of a giant Excel file with a lot of columns that are what we call the attributes, and a lot of lines, all the lines being a different product you sell. And it's very important to understand the concept of attributes, because that's going to be super useful for you when we talk about how to structure your campaign. So some of the attributes are required, and you have to have them in your feed. For example, each product will have a different ID. They will always have a title, a description, a price, etc. But you will also have attributes that are optional. So this is a list of attributes that are required, and I put in bold the 2 attributes that used to be optional when we were on a free model, but are now required. So Google product category for the apparel products is now required, as well as the availability. So in case you used to have free listings on Google Shopping and you want to now move to PLA, you just need to update your feed with those 2 attributes. And one attribute that's super important to understand, because it's gonna influence how your PLA can be served, is what we call the unique product identifier. And I also added a table to really explain it to you. It's a table you can find in the AdWords, in the Merch Center Help Center, and explains to you that depending on the type of product, we will require different types of unique product identifiers. So for example, if you are selling books, you can see that the one attribute that is required in green is ISBN code. If you are selling video games, we will require UPC. if you are selling something else, we will require that you put in your feed 2 out of brand, GTIN, or MPN. So 2 out of those 3 attributes, and it's really important to put this data because first, if you don't have what's needed, your items will not be able to serve on Google. And also, putting even more than those required, like putting the 3 product identifiers when you only need to put 2 is always going to be beneficial because it's going to help us to understand if the query match very well your product. So there's a few optional attributes that we can that are worth mentioning, and one free attribute that is worth mentioning is the product type. So product type is an attribute that you can use in your feed to put your own classification of type of products, and that we'll see later on can be used to structure your PLA campaign in AdWords. The other one that's worth mentioning is AdWords labels, because as we'll also discuss later, it can be very useful to structure your campaign, because that's your custom way to group products together. So that's for the attributes. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, so your product feed will be hosted in a specific interface that's called the Google Merchant Center. That's different from the AdWords UI. And that's where you will upload your feed and check everything that is related to your product feed. So any issues in the upload, any quality issue with your feed, that's where you're gonna have all the data. So you can see that you have several pages. So dashboard will really be the first one. It's gonna be the overview. You're gonna have a page called data feed, which is where you're gonna check if the upload of your feed went well. You need to know that it's super important to have fresh information in your feed, so that for example, availability of a product reflects correctly what's in stock on your side, and price is a good one, etc. So we really recommend you to upload your feed every day, and at least by the requirement, it will be at least once every 30 days. But probably one every day is much better. Then you have other pages like data quality. That's quite important. We'll see that later on. So the most common issues you can have with the feed, and where it's really important to start optimizing your campaign, is issues with your data feed. So the first step in optimizing your PLA campaign will be to look at your feed and see any errors there is. So on the Merge Center, there is one section, one page called data quality in blue, and you will see there any problems with your image, which are quite common, and also missing unique product identifiers, or maybe you put something in the attribute, but it's not correct. For example, MPN, that has to be a code, that's numbers. And it's not something you can decide on, it's given by the manufacturer. So you need to accurately put the information. And the other section is data feeds, and that's where you can see if there's any issue with the upload. In that case, you need to re-upload your feed. So to optimize your data quality, there's a few things you should look at. One of the first thing is to use high quality images. We recommend images of 400 by 400 pixels, and that's going to influence how we serve your PLA. So it's super important to have good quality images, as well as put yourself in the shoes of the user. Look for your PLA on google.cz and check if what you're seeing looks nice to you. When you look at your image, does it reflect accurately the product? Do you understand what the product is like? Thank you. Second thing is to make sure you adhere to our editorial guidelines. For example, in the title or description, you cannot put something all in capitals. Things like this. Optimize your description and titles. That's quite important, because the way we will match a query with your products is by looking at a mix of different signals. Some signals are attributes you have in your feed that are not really seen externally. For example, the attribute brand, and we'll know which brand it is, or the Google product category, and we'll know what type of product it is. But we will also look at what you put in your title and description, and to understand what is the product you're selling and if it matches the query. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you're on the Google Shopping property, you can have 70 characters for the title, but on the Google search page, you see that the text shown is much shorter, and usually it gets truncated after 30 to 40 characters. That's why it's super important to think of what's the most important in your title and put it at the beginning, so that you're sure that on Google search, those words will show. And if we look at the example I showed you, if we think about the example I showed you with iPhone 5, you can try it for yourself, but you can easily see that some titles start with iPhone 5 and probably the memory size and the color, which is good information for a user who's looking for an iPhone 5, but maybe some other products show up with first Apple iPhone 5, and maybe it gets truncated before you know what's the size of the memory. So that's kind of up to you to see for yourself what's best, what's the most important info. Or for example, if your product is not a phone but a cover to protect it, put that in the title, put that it is a cover. So it's really you to check for each product what makes sense. Here's a quick checklist you can check if you can't see your product listing ad campaign running and you wonder what's wrong. A few things to check is, have you linked your AdWords account and your Match Center account? So you need to do it in the Match Center under Settings AdWords, as well as in AdWords under Ad Extensions. So in AdWords, when you go through the campaign creation flow, it's going to be a mandatory step. So there shouldn't be any issue, but make sure you've also linked it in Match Center. Your data feed sits in Match Center and your campaign settings sit in AdWords, so we need to link both together. Also check in the Match Center UI if there's any data quality issues highlighted in that page, any processing issues highlighted in the feed status. Make sure you submit all required attributes, even submit optional ones if you can, it's better. And think if you need some custom attributes as well, like add those labels. So as far as your PLA campaign structure is concerned, you should always have a separate campaign for PLA. You can even have several PLA campaigns if you want to manage the budget for different lines of products differently. As I said, there's no keywords in a PLA campaign, so all you need to do is follow the steps and link your merge center account. And if you have no time to manage the bids, you should know that recently we launched automatic bidding for PLA, so you can use that feature. If you want, it will optimize your budget for the most clicks. Then you need to think about what's your ideal campaign structure, and what's important to think about is which products you want to group together because you're gonna put a different bid on them. So as for keyword campaigns, you probably have different bids depending on different type of products. So that's the same principle here. You want to make sure you build your campaign in a way that you can manage different bids. And so you're gonna create additional groups of products. That's called product targets. And by default, you'll have one called all products target. So the all products target is gonna be just an ad group with all products with a specific bid that is gonna be the lowest bid you're gonna put inside your PLA campaign, because you want that to be the default ad group where your PLAs will be triggered. And anything more granular than that, anything more specific, you're gonna have a higher bid. The higher bid will always trump the other one. So let's work through an example to make it clearer. So let's say we are selling bikes. We have a feed in Merch Center. We want to advertise those products on Google. We have some promos, and we have some bikes that are more expensive than others. So we will want to have a specific bidding strategy. And also we want to promote some bikes during the summer more. So here's an example of how you can map some of your products in your feed with attributes that exist there. For example, if you want to create an ad group with product type is mountain bikes, you would have the first and the third one that would belong to that ad group because that's what they have as an attribute in the feed. If you want to use brand, you can also segment your products by brand. That would be the second product in this example. And if you want to use custom groupings like AdWords labels for products that are your best sellers, you can do that too, and that would be the second and last product that would belong to that ad group. By default, there will always be this all product segment, which will always be triggered by default if there's nothing else more granular with a higher bid. So once you do that, once you've structured your campaign, you want to make sure you put a different bid for each, because that's the main goal of structuring your campaign. One goal will be to structure it to see stats by brands of type of products, but really the main goal to do that is to be able to assign different bids. So in this example, we created ad groups, each time with one product target only per ad group and a specific bid. As you can see in this example, some products can belong maybe to mountain bikes, but also be a McQueen bike. That's okay as long as the bids are different, because in that case, the highest bid will always take over. If you don't do that, if you put the same bid, our system would just randomly pick from which ad group to serve it. So here's how you would add additional product targets to your PLA campaign. You select the PLA campaign, you go into auto targets, and then you click on add product target. Then you select on which ad group you want to put that, so probably a new one. And you have two options. You will select the second one, add a group of products, because the all products is already there by default. And here on the drop down, you can choose which way you want to use to group your products together. You might want to group them by product type, if you fill that info in your feed because it's optional in Czech Republic, or you might want to use brand, or you might, which is by default, so you will always have that, or you might want to use AdWords labels because you created a custom group of bestseller products. And what also you can do is combine two together. So you can have, for example, product type is mountain bike, and maybe have a bid of 30 cents, but you can also have product type is mountain bike and is also brand McQueen, and that in that case put a higher bid, so it will, for example, 50 cents, and it will always go from that ad group. So a best practice is really to make sure each time you create a product type to click on the validate button, because that will tell you if there are some products in your feed that really match that product type. Because the way it works is that you need to write mountain bikes exactly the same way as how it is in your feed for us to recognize it. So for example, if there's an S at the end, there needs to be an S at the end too in the feed. So validating it just is one way to make sure that you're going to have traffic. So just to recap, so to create products target, make sure you have one ad group is one product target. The main reason for this is that you can have stats just for this, and also you can run the search query report and see what are the queries that the users type to trigger products in that segment. Make sure that every product target have different bids, or if they have the same bid, that they can't have the same products in both. And make sure to use AdWords labels to really go one step further once you already optimize the basic stuff in your PLA campaign. So once you created your structure, you want to make sure you think about the best bidding strategy. So let's go through an example again. So if the user types mountain bikes, there's several products in your feed that could be eligible, and several ad groups depending on what the product target inside that ad group. The way we will decide which one will serve is we're looking at which one has the highest bid. So in that case, it would be the second bike because it is in an ad group called AdWords Labels High Margin, which has the highest bid of all. One thing you might also want to do is to use a new option to group your products together, but this time to just target one single product. And that's the first option in the drop-down called ID. And you can, if you have like 5 products that perform really, really well, and for each 5 of them you want a different bid, then instead of using a bestseller group with AdWords labels, you might want to target them individually, so have one ad group for one product with ID is, and you put the ID of the product, the ID, you can find it in your feed. So let's see a few examples you can use it. Usually you will only use ID for a few products because it's very unlikely that you want to go that granular to have more than, let's say, 10 maximum products for which you want to have a specific bid. So in this example, you have 3 products you target by ID, and by default, any other product will be in all products group. So you can see that the bids will match the highest bid of the product target. Here you see that we mix targeting by ID as well as targeting by product type. So you see that the first bike has a bid of 90 cents, because it's also the way it's targeted with the ID. The second bike has a bid of 95 cents because it's also a bid assigned just for him with an ID targeting. The third one has a bid of 70 cents because it belongs to product type mountain bikes. And the last one cannot match any of the first three criteria. So by default, will fall into the all products target and have the lowest bid of all. You can do the same with AdWords labels, so you can do all kinds of combinations. So that's really, I think, the most crucial part of optimizing your PLA campaign in AdWords is to think about how to structure your campaign in a way where you will optimize the bids you want to have based on performance of each group of products. All right, so it's the same way as with keyword campaigns. You just have some bestseller products which bring you more margin, so you want to put a higher bid, and have the long tail maybe with a lower one. So the same principle applies to PLA. So in order to refine all that bid strategy, you need to know more about the performance of your PLA campaign and know it probably at the product level or group of products. So there's two ways to track your performance. One way is to add in the feed as an additional attribute, so an additional column if you want, what we call AdWords redirect. So it will be an additional optional column called AdWords redirect, and for each single item in your feed, you will have a tracking URL for them. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to go directly in AdWords, and in AdWords, if you go to the your product listing ad campaign, then under auto targets you can show a column called destination URL that's by default empty, but if you click on it, you can there put a tracking URL that will be at the product target level. And inside that tracking URL, you can put some value track parameters, for example, URL, so that you can get the tracking at the item level, thanks to the URL of the product. So one or the other, it's really up to what suits you best, but that's probably a good idea to have more granular info about the performance of your PLA. Another thing that you can do to further optimize your PLA campaign is to look at the search query report in AdWords. So even if product listing ads don't use any keywords, the user types a query. So with that report, you'll be able to see what are the queries that triggered your PLA. And you're gonna be able to understand if there are some queries that bring you the most traffic. If that's the case, then maybe it makes sense to isolate those products in a specific segment and have a custom bid for them, probably higher than the rest of your products. Another way to use that same report is, on the contrary, you might see that some queries typed are not really relevant for you because maybe you don't sell that product. So in that case, you can put those queries as negative keywords, so you will block your PLA from appearing on those queries. All right? So that's just the same way you would use it for normal keyword campaigns. Something else that you can do is use promo text. So when you look at the PLA on Google, usually you will need to put your mouse over the PLA to see that promo text. That can be, that's optional, but that can be something that differentiates you from your competitors. So, for example, if you put that there's a specific sale this week, 10% off this week, that's a good call to action to click on your product rather than your competitor's product. And I really recommend that you do something quite specific, like at least something like free shipping, not something too generic like your best website, because that's not very, I mean, you will be the best website in 1 week too. Why should I click on your ad today? So try to put something with a call to action. And also, you want to make sure to have only one promo message per ad group. That's why if you want to put a promo message quite specific with, for example, a promotion that applies only on specific products you sell, you want to make sure that your campaign structure is granular enough so that it will apply to just that set of products. So in summary, there's really 5 tips you should remember of to optimize your PLA campaign. First is to ensure that all your inventory is present in your data feed, and that this data feed, these items are approved to serve on Google Shopping. So that's on the Merchant Center side that you're going to be able to check if there's any quality issues with your feed. So always make sure that all your products are approved and all of your products are in your feed. Second thing, make sure that you bid strategically. You should decide which ad group is going to serve your product based on the bid. And you should know, of course, that some products are going to be worth investing more than others. So that's really important that you segment your campaign further than the default product target, which is all products, so that you can go more granular, group your best sellers together, group your products on sale together, group all your TV together, etc., and put a specific bid for them, as well as to read your stats more easily. Third thing is data quality. So it's very important in order to be eligible to show on PLA, as well as to serve more often, to have the best data quality as possible. So as I showed you at the beginning, on the Merch Center UI, there is a page called Data Quality where you can check if there's any errors. So sometimes, if something is missing, like a required attribute missing, your product will not serve at all on PLA. Other times, it's more recommendations about optimization. For example, we will tell you that your description is very short, and that if you fix that, you're gonna serve more often on PLA. Because it's really important to understand that our system automatically matches what's in your feed with the query. So the more info you give us, the better we'll be able to serve your products when a query is relevant for you. And information we're going to use is, for example, what's in your description. So think about putting as many info as possible in your description. It should be like the marketing speech, but also technical specifications, because you never know what the user is going to look for. Other things that are really important is to make sure that the attributes you feel are correct. For example, I had an experience with a client selling selling running shoes. They were the brand owner of that running shoes, and they didn't understand why on PLA they didn't show. But all the resellers that were selling those same running shoes showed. So we discovered that the issue was that they filled the Google product category attribute, but so it was filled, all right, but it was not really the best category they could choose, and it was not granular at all. So, for example, in their case, they chose clothing and accessories as the Google product category, when in reality they should have put apparel and accessories / shoes / athletic shoes / basketball shoes. And you can understand that way our system really understands what kind of product this is, that it's a shoe, it's a basketball shoe, and the way this will impact that we're going to be able to serve that PLA when someone looks for that brand and for that type of running shoes. So it's really important to optimize your attributes. Next point is query relevance. So that's the next step, I would say, once you've made sure that your feed has the best quality possible, you submit as many attributes as you can, and you've built a really granular product structure with specific bits, then you can also look at the search query report and make sure you filter out traffic that would not be relevant to you with negative keywords. And then the last step, I would say, in the optimization would be to add some promo text, just to have a call to action when your PLA shows on google.cz. All right, so I hope that's been insightful for you. If you have questions, I'm gonna sit just in front during the break, so you can feel free to come and see me.
And we have more time, so if you have some questions for Olivia, even in Czech, we have a microphone over there, so you can ask. But I will have first question. Olivia, I can see that our customers has some problems with policy. Could you please tell us when just the product is disapproved and when the merchant center account is shut down, or at least some borders?
Yes. So first of all, you should, before you start PLA campaigns, you should check if your product is complies with the policies. So in the big guidelines are, you should comply with the AdWords policies, so no weapons, no alcohol, no tobacco in general, no electronic cigarettes. You should also have only family-safe products, so nothing adult will be allowed, no strong alcohol will be allowed. And on top of that, we also have some more specific policies for Google Shopping. For example, no vehicles are allowed to be sold on Google Shopping, no services, so no tickets for events, no subscriptions of magazines. If you want to have something to be sold with a subscription contract, the only thing that's allowed is mobile phones that can be for free with a subscription, for example. So there's a range of things that you can check in the Merch Center Help Center. And then what's important to check is that sometimes most of your products are okay, but there's like one product you've not noticed that is not going to be accepted. So be careful about that. For example, it can be the case with products with some ivory in it, for example, for jewelry, that will be disallowed. So depending on the kind of things you put on Google Shopping and shouldn't, either the single item only will be disapproved. That's the case, for example, quite common with electronic cigarettes that shouldn't be in your feed. That's going to be disapproved. But at some point, if you don't fix that, your whole feed might be disapproved. So make sure to check in data quality that you fix those issues so that it just stays, in that case for electronic cigarettes, you remove it from your feed. So your whole feed is not taken down. And another example I can give you is if you have watermarks in your images. So if you have, for example, put in the image of your product the logo on top of it, so that can be an issue too. And in that case, your whole feed might be disapproved. So be very careful about that. So if you have your feed that is disapproved, make sure to correct the issue as soon as possible, and then you can ask to be reapproved, and you will be reprocessed.
So, any other question? Oh, over there.
Já bych se chtěl zeptat, jestli product listing ads je nutné používat jenom pro propagaci čistě produktu jako jednotlivá věc, nebo se dají použít třeba pro komoditu, někdo chce metr folie, nebo pro služby, jestli je takové věci možné taky nahrát.
The question is if some advertisers can use Merchant Center even for services, or if it's just for goods, or...
Services are not allowed on Google Shopping, so you need to sell either physical products or digital products, for example, like ebooks, but digital products that do not require the download of a software in order to use them. So that's the only thing. But so any product is okay as long as it's not specified as not okay in our policies. And services, all of them are not approved for Google Shopping. So, for example, if some industry like travels, it's not going to be a good product for you. But if you're a retailer, an e-commerce site, usually that's going to be fine.
Tak ještě nějaká otázka? Nebo můžeme skončit? Ještě jedna otázka tady.
Sorry, I have two questions. First, when I sell e-books, I can sell e-books about guns and alcohol, or is this allowed? And second question is, you recommend us to use only one promotion text, peer ad group, and how can we optimize our promotion text, how test different variant?
Okay, so for the first question, it's okay to have books that talk about guns, for example, but our system might disapprove it just because it's not perfect. So in that case, you just need to contact your Google representative to make it right. And for the second question regarding promo text, normally the way you structure your campaign is such that in one ad group you're only selling a specific type of products from a single brand, which should be granular enough to have one promo text really relevant for that. But if you want to try like two different promo texts because you don't know like which one will have the best impact on your CTR, or the only way is to try it maybe for 1 week and then change it and try the other one for another week, because only one PLA ad per ad group will serve. It's going to be the first one.
Tak jo, tak to by bylo všechno. Poděkujte Olivii. Určitě to i budete moct kdekoliv. Ona se tady bude pořád pohybovat, takže ji můžete kdykoliv zastavit a zeptat se na nějakou ještě další otázku. Připojí se k nám i na party, takže tam bude.